word style is used in different disciplines and refers to different things. So when style is used in the context of composition, what does it actually mean? In other words, what is style in writing? Now, style refers to the way an author writes as opposed to what the author writes. And style is established through the author's word choice, the author's tone, the author's sentence structure. Now, these elements work conjointly within the essay to establish mood, to create images and meaning within the text. Now, the arrangement of these elements help establish the author's personality, the author's attitude toward the audience, and the author's voice. And that voice can be heard by the audience while reading the piece. When editing a final draft, many writers tend to focus on things like correctness. So they spend more time fixing grammar errors and believe that fixing those grammar errors would be sufficient to make the paper better. Style, indeed, starts with correctness. So your paper would not have much value if it is full of grammatical errors. So a starting point for style is actually fixing grammatical errors. But beyond fixing grammatical errors, what else can be done to a paper to make it more effective? At times, style requires the writer to read over his text while paying attention to word choice, paying attention to the level of clarity and engagement of his text, and paying attention to how his writing would actually sound to an audience. So this is basically an awareness activity where you simply have to take one of your paragraphs and look at the types of sentences you're using. So if you have a pretty good knowledge of grammar, you have been introduced to what is called simple sentences, complex sentences, and compound sentences. Now, as a writer, if you find yourself using too many simple sentences, this can create monotony within your writing. So the same would be true if you're using a series of complex sentences and compound sentences. Sometimes complex ideas can be expressed with simple sentences, and at times complex ideas can be expressed with complex sentences. So in order to avoid monotony within your writing, it is best to use a mixture to have a balance in the types of sentences you're using. So if you just start by revising your paper, paying attention to the types of sentences you're using, your writing could benefit a lot from that awareness activity. The following is an excerpt of an English 104 paper. Now, the paper is an ethnographic essay about the Society for Earth-Based Religions. So I'm going to read you the excerpt, and you could see for yourself how it sounds. And based on the patterning of the different sentences, you could see how you could improve that by bringing in a mixture of simple, complex, and compound sentences. I took a couple of minutes to get to know Evan. I asked him about the meaning behind the spiral-looking symbol. This symbol was the profile picture of the Society's Facebook page. The symbol also appears on the t-shirt designed and sold by the Society. I expected the symbol to have a historical or religious meaning behind it. I had hoped to tie that meaning to earth-based religions somehow. To my surprise, Evan informed me that the symbol was actually something a former member used to doodle on notes and her minute-keeping records. Then people started to associate the symbol with the Society. The Society decided to make it the official symbol. So if you have such a text and you were in the phase of editing it, what changes can you make to vary the types of sentences you're using? In order to make your writing coherent and the transitions between your ideas smooth, you must clearly express or imply the logical relationship between your ideas. And if you fail to do so, one idea is simply juxtaposed with another, and readers are left to make the logical connections for themselves. And in these types of situations, experienced readers will of course notice that nothing links your ideas, or they may simply imply that there is no logical connection between your ideas. Beyond the use of punctuation marks, you could also make use of what is called transitional devices to clarify the relationship between one sentence, one paragraph, ideas to others. Now, you can find a list of transitional devices which are often ranked by the function, categorized by the function. So, to create an addition type of relationship between your ideas, you could use transitional words such as moreover, further, furthermore, besides, and then, likewise, also. So you have a good list of them. Now, to create a comparison logical relationship between your ideas, you could use transitional devices such as similarly, likewise, or other words like that. And for contrast, you could use words like but, yet, however, still, nevertheless, on the other hand, on the contrary, etc. And for purpose, you could use transitional words such as to this end, for this purpose, with this object. And for result, you could use transitional words such as hence, therefore, accordingly, consequently, thus. So you really have a good list of these kinds of transitional words that you could make use of. Now, one thing that is really important to keep in mind is that these transitional words will not themselves create the logical relationship between your ideas. That relationship has to be there before the use of these transitional words. Now, the transitional words just come in your writing to clarify that relationship. They don't create them. So with word choice, the author really has to develop what is called an audience awareness. They need to have a rhetorical awareness of the writing situation. Now, if you're writing to professionals, the words you would use would be different from if you're just writing to a general audience. So if you're writing to experts within your field, the way you would write would be very different from if you're just writing to publish it in a magazine. Because if you heavily rely on what is usually called jargon, so insider language, the general public would not be able to understand that. So sometimes having the ability to assess the rhetorical situation is key to knowing what kind of word to use. Now, with non-native speakers of English, especially those evolving in English-speaking environments, sometimes we hear words all over. I mean, some of our words, we discover them through reading. Some of our words, we discover them by interacting with friends outside. And at times, it might be difficult to tell which word is formal, which word is informal, which word is appropriate to use in the context of formal writing, and which ones are not. And because of that, it is critical to pay attention to the kinds of words we are including in our writing. Now, again, for this part of the activity, if you have your draft in front of you, go over it, paying attention to the words you selected to include in your writing. Now, while looking at those words, keep your audience in mind. Think about the fact that you could be using different words for the same concept, and maybe some words would be more appropriate for your audience as opposed to others. Now, as a writer, if you're able to apply these three activities, so the first one being varying your sentence patterns, the second one being clarifying the logical relationship between your ideas, and the third one being choosing your words carefully, this would have dramatic consequences on your writing. It will dramatically improve your writing.